From the top. Okay. Drop that. Yeah. Feel the funk, y'all. Yeah. Feel the funk, y'all. Yeah. You're laid back in the cut.
Thank you so much for tuning in into this week's episode of In the Middle Talk Show. I'm your host, I'm Jeremiah Drummond, and today we will be discussing toxic masculinity.
Today, our special guest is Hakeem Bradley. Born in Greenville, South Carolina, is an American hip-hop artist, poet, better known by his stage name Khemo. He is most likely known for his diverse lyrical wordplay and ability to sense a brilliant tune of an instrument. His highly anticipated self-titled album, Lord Khemo, will release on March 1st, 2019. Please help me welcome Khemo.
All right, so what's new with you? What's some projects you working on? Because every time I see you, you always working on something.
I'm working on another project right now. I'm not ready to release the name yet.
Okay,
but,
okay.
It'll be coming very soon, man.
That's what's up. I know we're all going to support and we're going to look at it and whatever it takes, brother, whatever it takes.
Appreciate that, man.
All right, so today we're talking about masculinity, more particular toxic masculinity. But my first question is, what is masculinity to each of you?
You want me to start?
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, masculinity to me is leadership, and I would say basically leadership, man. I like to lead by example, like in my household. You know what I'm saying? Another thing I look at is really just I'm trying to think, man.
I know it's a tough question.
Yeah, it's because people have different ways to be masculine, you know what I'm saying? Nobody's the same, so I like to lead by example because normally in the household, everybody's looking to the man to see how does he handle things, you know what I'm saying? Nobody wants to step on any toes or anything, so leadership is the big thing in my book.
Right, I can agree with that.
I believe, so we're just gonna go with men first.
We go.
You know what I mean? You see, I'm not toxic masculine. I was like, I was trying to let the ladies see what they express, but for me, masculinity expresses the dominance of the man. The leadership, the protective nature of home, the hunter spirit of a person, the organizer. I believe all of those are masculine traits. The warrior aspect of a person, I believe those are masculine.
Real masculine then, I guess. I just feel like masculinity is that leadership. I mean, I feel like you can be masculine and it be so many different layers to you.
Right.
But I definitely feel like you have to be just strong and secure in who you are.
Facts. That's good.
Masculinity for me is it's the intentional man. I say intentional. I think that if you view yourself as a man, then you're gonna walk that in every step of your life, or at least try to, and be intentional about it. So for me, that's what being masculine in a sense is. I'm very big on, masculine to me is a man of his word, I guess you could say. So if you say it, you be it, you walk it, that's what being masculine is to me.
This is a cry that no one heard.
Upstate and surrounding areas. Get ready for Showtime Productions' hit stage play, A Cry Nobody Heard. Coming to USC Upstate's Performing Arts Center, Saturday, March 2nd, 2019 at 6:30 p.m. This is an action-packed drama that will have you on the edge of your seats the entire time. Come see the show fans cannot stop talking about. Tickets are on sale now, $25 general admission and $35 VIP. It's showtime.
All right, so I know I said this a little bit earlier. So is there a such thing as toxic masculinity?
Definitely. I did 6 years in the military. I think that's where I saw it the most. I've heard all kind of statements, women can't do this, women can't do that, a woman's not supposed to do that. And it's like, you have to let people play their roles. That's how everything works. You know what I'm saying? You can't just think you can do everything, because that's like, you'll get nowhere that way.
That's
right. Yeah, and I'm married to a woman. I'm not going to be able to tell her what to do. So if, I was raised in a home where a man was the head of the household, and a lot of men of that generation believe in that the man is the head of the household, and we do this, that. I believe more of a partnership, actually. Right. Believe too much of one thing makes it toxic. Too much of one thing makes it toxic. Not the thing itself, but too much of it. And not a balance of something else. Too much darkness is bad. Too much light is actually bad. I think there's nothing wrong with being masculine, but to the point where you're putting down other people or abusive and rage gets to the best of you because you're trying to protect and all of this. I think that's when it becomes masculine, when you want too much control over a situation. I think those are examples of toxic masculinity.
That's good. I actually, I'm thinking about now of a Facebook status you made, and I know we don't have previous conversations about this, but as a man, sometimes it's hard to actually express your feelings and emotions, whether that's publicly or even privately. Right. And I think being able to do that is the first steps of overcoming toxic masculinity. Right.
The emotion is expressed in African religions. The feminine is the emotion. If you find out, a lot of men are very pent up because they're unwilling to acknowledge that hurt me. Actually, my feelings were actually hurt. Right. They know it's hurt, so they've been taught to turn that emotion into anger instead.
Absolutely.
So, when a man gets upset, he really might be sad, but he can't let you see sadness because you interpret sadness as weakness. Right. But the danger in that is grieving is a human emotion. And any person that tries to eliminate human emotion leads to psychopathic and sociopathic behavior. It's just because you're telling yourself that doesn't exist in your brain, but your body wants to do something naturally, but you're denying it process. So, and thus you have rage fit, or you become so pent up, you blank out, because the body wants to do what it naturally does. But you're telling, everyone around me, they're not going to understand. Well, your body wants to cry. Right. Please. Right. Please cry. Right. Let it go.
Before you kill somebody.
Exactly.
And to the subject of, even with how women view men is subjective. It's what you've seen in your household, it's your father. And naturally, as a woman, you end up in situations where you don't even realize that you're projecting that onto that man that you're with. And you're trying to get him to be a certain way or act a certain way. So with that being said, it's almost like, even when I have acquaintances and they don't feel that a man should cry, that just leads into another topic because you're not showing any type of emotion. So then we're getting over to mental health, and that's even bigger issue among our community than anything.
Right. And I think the stigma that the word emotional gets put on it by society, that plays a big part too, because, as men, we're taught not to be emotional, don't show emotion. You put that to the side and you just get it done. And sometimes, like, anything can be an emotion. Hate is an emotion, anger is an emotion, love is an emotion. So as human beings, we have to be able to show every side of our emotions, because if not, then it's not normal.
And I think the detriment of getting into a relationship when you have that toxic masculinity is, as women, we want you to feel the emotions, all of them.
Right.
Like, feel them with us right now,
exactly.
at this moment.
Exactly.
I'm crying over a commercial about dogs. You need to feel this with me. The ASPCA commercial, that brings it out of you.
Right.
So, and I feel like, especially when you have, now that I know what it is, because when you first brought this to my attention that we're going to be talking about it, I was like, what is toxic masculinity? I said, now it has a name. I will throw it around now, you and your toxic masculinity.
There you go.
So I feel like I'm an alpha female, so it's like when someone comes to me and wants to control me and has that, I'm like,
right.
We're going to have a problem, bro.
Right.
So it's difficult. It's very difficult.
Those who work hard know that hard work pays off. And those who take days off know nothing about hard work. Every day, I try my best to dedicate myself to my music, my sanity, and most importantly, my family. Culture shift, shifting the culture back to its roots.
have a question for you. You being a rapper and an artist, how do you necessarily deal with what you put out as being masculine or not being masculine? Because I'm sure that triggers in your head.
Honestly, it doesn't really trigger in my head because I'm comfortable with expressing my emotion like to the world. And because one of the things I wanna let people know is like it's okay to talk about your personal experiences because you're not the only person in the world that experienced that thing. Everybody has experienced something. So more than likely, if I'm telling you a story about what I experienced, you felt that before. So that's what I don't think it's enough of that, you know, because what would be considered toxic masculine music would be, you know, we know what it is, you know, people jumping around, waving their guns like that's toxic masculinity.
Toxic,
Like, but that's not likely though. Like most of America isn't living that way. Most of Black America isn't living that way.
I have one question, and y'all can touch on this briefly. How do one overcome toxic masculinity?
Pay attention to your real feelings. Like you have to be real with yourself. I think that's where it starts.
Insecure in yourself too.
If you be real with yourself and you like, you know, I'm sad about this, and you express it, then I think that's a step. You know, but if you keep suppressing it inside, and it's something I had to learn too. Like I just learned within the past few years because of the way I was taught. You know, by the older generation, I was taught, you know, don't feel anything, do it. You know what I'm saying? Do it even when you don't want to do it. I had to teach myself, like, let those emotions out because that is toxic. That projects on the other people. I was blowing up on other people, not knowing why. And when I started to deal with myself, I started to deal with people differently.
Right.
Yeah, I think from coming from a relationship aspect, I think I'm about to make somebody mad, but I think a lot of women, y'all probably got some toxic masculinity too. And I say that to say this, we have to allow our men to be men, you know, allow our kings to be kings. We spend so much time saying we want a real man and then spend the rest of the time emasculating them. And not allowing them to be real men and putting them in this box of you can't have emotions, you can't have feelings, you can't have this. Allow your man to be a man and know when he has that moment where he wants to be soft, that doesn't make him not a man. And then you get up on your pedestal because now you the man because he ain't feeling like he the man right now. So I feel like you got to know a balance in relationships. You got to, both of you got to have that balance.
Part of our culture is what the old folks would call the dozens, and what we called, you know, in my generation, we used to call it joning and, you know, jokes or whatever. And so, you know, the jokes is gonna fly. That's part of life. And we're prideful people. We don't want to be embarrassed so hard because our great-grandparents, we felt were humiliated. Now we got to carry this badge of integrity and honor and respect. But we're human still. At the end of the day, you know, we have to start to just acknowledge, like, yo, dog, like, that didn't feel good at all. Not at all.
Right.
And, you know, what I do is art. Art is a beautiful place to place those feminine feelings in when you don't know how to express them. You know, write, draw. There's so much data that speaks about how people use art for their mental health and how they can get out these range of emotions. Sometimes you put a piece of paper in front of a person to see how much they become a kid again. It's the most amazing thing you'll see. It's because they can go back to a place of peace. And a lot of men, the last time they were able to express emotion was when they were a kid.
Wow.
Like when they were a kid, and then they just taught themselves from that point on, well, I'm not gonna do that anymore.
Right.
You know, and then they become pent up for the rest of their life.
Wow. That was
say,
good.
you know, fight that stigma, fight the stereotype, and find that balance within yourself and even in relationships with others, whether that's a relationship, you know, with a significant other, a coworker, whatever that is. I don't think that you need to ask somebody else what your role is when that role is within you. Go with what you feel and be comfortable with what you feel. Right. Give way to it. Don't wallow in it, but give way to how you feel so that you can, you know what I mean, release it, because those emotions and them being pent up, people don't realize that breeds sickness. So ride the wave.
Hey, I think this was good. I think we discussed just about everything that we needed to discuss, and we did it to where we have solutions to actually get better, whether that's expressing through art or just, you know, actually being real with yourself.
Right.
And knowing, I mean, essentially you are the problem in that. But thank you so much, man, for joining us.
Thank you for
Thank you for being
me,
a part, man. It's so amazing to have you on board. But yeah, thank you again, guys, for tuning in to this episode. Cannot wait to see you next week.
No, it was good, but let's get a couple more just in case.
Today's episode was brought to you by Jails Beauty and Tony Fleece.